Maria had always loved plants. Her small apartment was a jungle of green, overflowing with ferns, ivy, and succulents of every shape and size. But amongst her collection, one plant stood out, a rare succulent called a blue elf. It wasn't just its unusual color, a soft, powdery blue that seemed to glow in the sunlight, but also the care she had put into it. She'd nursed it from a tiny cutting, patiently waiting for it to grow into the beautiful specimen it was today. The blue elf lived on a small table near the window, soaking up the morning sun. Maria often spent her mornings drinking coffee and admiring its unique form. She even talked to it sometimes, sharing her worries and her dreams. It was more than just a plant, it was a companion, a silent listener in her busy city life. She had bought the special pot for it at a local pottery fair. The artist had hand-painted it with swirling blues and greens, perfectly complementing the plant's color. It was a one-of-a-kind piece, and Maria cherished it as much as the plant itself. She considered both the plant and pot to be her prized possession. Little did she know, this unique plant, a symbol of her love and care, would soon become the key to unraveling a terrible violation and bringing justice to her life. It was a quiet Tuesday when everything changed, a day that started like any other but ended with Maria's world turned upside down. The memory of that day would forever be etched in her mind, a stark reminder of vulnerability and the unexpected twists life can take. That Tuesday started like any other. Maria woke up, made her coffee, and spent a few minutes admiring her blue elf as the sun streamed through the window. She left for work, a little cafe downtown, feeling content and ready for the day. She always felt better after her quiet time with her plants. But when she returned home that evening, the scene that greeted her was anything but peaceful. The front door was ajar, splintered wood surrounding the lock. A wave of cold dread washed over her as she pushed the door open further. Her apartment was a disaster. Drawers were pulled out and emptied onto the floor, clothes were strewn everywhere, and furniture was overturned. The television was gone from its stand, the stereo was missing, and her jewelry box lay empty on the bed. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She rushed through the apartment, assessing the damage. It was clear that the robbers had taken their time, systematically ransacking every room. The feeling of violation was overwhelming, it felt like someone had invaded not just her home, but her personal space, her sense of security. And then she noticed it. The small table by the window, where her blue elf usually sat, was empty. The hand-painted pot was gone, too. A wave of grief washed over her, stronger than she expected. It wasn't just the monetary value of the stolen items, it was the loss of something irreplaceable, something that held sentimental value. The blue elf was more than just a plant, it was a piece of her heart. The realization that it was gone added a sharp sting to the already devastating experience. This was much more than a simple robbery, it was a personal attack. Shaking with a mixture of anger and fear, Maria called the police. 2 officers arrived within minutes, their faces grim as they surveyed the scene. They took notes, dusted for fingerprints, and asked Maria a series of questions. What was missing? Did she see anyone suspicious in the neighborhood? Did she have any idea who might have done this? Maria answered as best she could, but she had little to offer. She hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary that day, and she couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm her. The officers were professional and polite, but Maria could sense their skepticism. Burglaries were common in the city, and unless there was a clear lead, most cases went unsolved. They explained that they would file a report and check for any matching fingerprints or stolen items that turned up in pawn shops. But they also cautioned her not to get her hopes up. The chances of recovering her belongings, especially something as unique as the blue elf in its hand-painted pot, were slim. As the officers left, Maria felt a wave of despair wash over her. The police investigation felt perfunctory, a formality rather than a genuine effort to catch the culprits. She was alone, her apartment violated, and her most cherished possession gone. The thought of the blue elf sitting in some stranger's home, uncared for and unappreciated, was almost unbearable. She felt helpless, lost in a sea of uncertainty and fear. The police offered little hope, and Maria wondered if she would ever feel safe in her own home again. The carefree joy she once felt in her apartment was replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. Weeks passed, and Maria tried to piece her life back together. She replaced the broken lock, bought a new television, and attempted to recreate some semblance of normalcy in her apartment. But the feeling of violation lingered, a constant reminder of what had been taken from her. She still had nightmares about the robbery, waking up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. One evening, feeling restless and unable to sleep, Maria decided to browse an online forum dedicated to succulents. It was a community she had frequented before, a place to share photos, ask for advice, and connect with other plant enthusiasts. She found solace in the beauty and tranquility of the plants, a welcome distraction from her worries. As she scrolled through the latest posts, a picture caught her eye. It was a photo of a blue elf succulent, its soft blue leaves glowing under a bright light. But it wasn't just the plant itself that made her stop scrolling. It was the pot. The hand-painted pot with its swirling blues and greens. Maria's breath caught in her throat. She zoomed in on the photo, her eyes scanning every detail. It couldn't be, she thought. It was too much of a coincidence. But the more she looked, the more certain she became. It was her blue elf in her pot. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins. This couldn't be a coincidence. It had to be her plant. But how? How could it have ended up on an online forum, posted by a complete stranger? A spark of hope flickered within her, a tiny ember in the darkness. Could this be the break she needed? Could this be the key to solving the mystery of the robbery and bringing the perpetrators to justice? She knew she had to act fast. Maria stared intently at the picture on the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. The pot was undeniably the same one she had purchased at the pottery fair. But there was still a sliver of doubt in her mind. Could it be a different pot, a similar design? She needed to be absolutely certain before contacting the police again. She couldn't afford to get her hopes up only to be disappointed. Then, she saw it. A small, almost imperceptible scratch on the rim of the pot. It was a tiny imperfection, a chip in the paint that she had accidentally created while repotting the blue elf months ago. She remembered being annoyed by it at the time, but now, that tiny scratch was a beacon of hope, a definitive mark that confirmed her suspicions. The scratch was unmistakable. It was exactly the same shape and size as the one on her pot. There was no doubt in her mind anymore. This was her blue elf, in her pot, being displayed online by someone who had no right to it. A wave of anger washed over her, stronger than anything she had felt since the robbery. The audacity of these people, stealing her plant and then brazenly showing it off online. She felt a burning desire to confront them, to demand an explanation, to get her plant back. But she knew she had to remain calm and think rationally. She couldn't jeopardize the investigation by acting impulsively. She needed to gather as much evidence as possible before contacting the police. The scratch was key, but more proof would only strengthen her case. She looked at the picture again, memorizing every detail, every leaf, every swirl of paint on the pot. This time, she would not let them get away with it. With trembling hands, Maria took a screenshot of the post, carefully capturing the photo of the blue elf and the username of the person who had posted it. She also copied the link to the post and the date it was published. She knew that this information could be crucial in tracking down the thieves. Before contacting the police, Maria decided to do a little investigating of her own. She clicked on the user's profile and discovered that they were a relatively new member of the forum, with only a few posts. Their username was Green Thumb Greg, which she suspected was a fake name. The profile didn't reveal much else, but she noticed that the user had posted in a thread about local plant swaps in the city. This gave her an idea. She created a new account on the forum, using a different name, and replied to the Green Thumb Greg post, expressing interest in trading plants. She wrote a friendly message, praising the blue elf and asking if they would be interested in swapping it for one of her rare orchids. She knew it was a long shot, but she hoped that Green Thumb Greg would respond. If she could lure them into a meeting, she could potentially gather more information about them and their location. Even if they didn't agree to a swap, she might be able to glean some clues from their messages. While she waited for a response, Maria gathered all the evidence she had: the screenshot of the post, the link to the profile, the information about the plant swaps, and the original police report from the robbery. She was ready to present her findings to the police and hopefully convince them to take her case seriously this time. The tiny scratch on the pot had given her a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to see justice served. The next morning, Maria walked into the police station, her hands clutching the folder containing her evidence. She asked to speak to one of the officers who had responded to her initial call, hoping that familiarity might give her a slight advantage. Officer Miller remembered her case. He listened patiently as Maria explained her discovery, showing him the screenshot of the blue elf and pointing out the distinctive scratch on the pot. He could see the determination in her eyes, a stark contrast to the despair he had witnessed weeks earlier. He admitted that he hadn't held out much hope of solving the case, but he was impressed by Maria's resourcefulness. The scratch on the pot, he agreed, was a compelling piece of evidence. He took down all the information she had gathered, including the username of Green Thumb Greg and the details about the plant swaps. Officer Miller promised Maria that he would look into it further. He couldn't make any guarantees, but he assured her that he would take her lead seriously. He understood how much the blue elf meant to her, and he was willing to do what he could to help her recover it. He explained that he would need to trace the IP address of the Green Thumb Greg account to try and pinpoint their location. He would also check for any prior arrests or connections to other burglaries in the area. It would take time, he cautioned, but he would keep her informed of any progress. As Maria left the police station, she felt a sense of relief. Finally, someone was taking her seriously. The tiny scratch on the pot had made all the difference, transforming her from a victim with little hope into an active participant in the investigation. Now, all she could do was wait and hope that Officer Miller could track down Green Thumb Greg and bring the thieves to justice. The blue elf was out there, and she was determined to get it back. Officer Miller, true to his word, immediately began the online investigation. He contacted the department's tech specialist, Detective Johnson, who was skilled at tracing IP addresses and navigating the complexities of the Internet. Detective Johnson quickly got to work, using his expertise to track down the location associated with the Green Thumb Greg account. It wasn't as simple as just typing the username into a search engine. He had to obtain a warrant to access the forum's server logs and trace the IP address back to its source. After a few hours of meticulous work, Detective Johnson had a breakthrough. He traced the IP address to an apartment building located across town, in a neighborhood known for its high crime rate. The address was 312, Elm Street, Apartment 4B. Officer Miller and Detective Johnson reviewed the information together. They checked the address against their database of known offenders and discovered that several individuals with criminal records had been associated with that building in the past. This further strengthened their suspicion that Green Thumb Greg was involved in criminal activity. They decided to conduct surveillance on the apartment building before seeking a search warrant. They wanted to observe the residence and gather more evidence to support their case. They knew that obtaining a warrant would require a strong showing of probable cause, and they didn't want to risk alerting the suspects prematurely. Officer Miller contacted Maria to update her on their progress. He cautioned her not to get her hopes up too high, but he assured her that they were doing everything they could to track down the blue elf and bring the thieves to justice. Maria was grateful for the update, and she felt a renewed sense of hope that her nightmare might soon be over. The tiny scratch on the pot had set in motion a chain of events that could finally lead to closure. For 2 days, Officer Miller and Detective Johnson, along with a couple of other officers, conducted surveillance on the apartment building at 312, Elm Street. They took turns observing the building from unmarked cars, discreetly parked across the street. They watched as people came and went, noting their appearances and any suspicious behavior. They saw several individuals entering and exiting apartment 4B at different times of the day and night, some carrying large bags and boxes. They couldn't see what was inside, but their movements seemed hurried and secretive. One evening, they observed a man leaving apartment 4B carrying a large flat-screen television, its screen carefully wrapped in a blanket. He loaded it into the back of a beat-up van and drove away. The officers followed the van for a few blocks before pulling it over. The driver, a young man with a nervous demeanor, couldn't provide a valid explanation for why he was transporting the television. He claimed he had bought it from a friend, but he couldn't remember the friend's name. The officers ran the serial number of the television and discovered that it had been reported stolen in a recent burglary. This was the break they needed. The arrest of the van driver provided them with the probable cause they needed to obtain a search warrant for apartment 4B. They knew that time was of the essence. The longer they waited, the greater the chance that the suspects would dispose of the stolen goods and disappear. Officer Miller immediately contacted the district attorney's office to request a search warrant. He presented the evidence they had gathered, including the traced IP address, the criminal records of individuals associated with the building, and the arrest of the van driver with the stolen television. The district attorney agreed that they had sufficient probable cause and authorized the warrant. The raid was set for the following morning. The following morning, as the sun began to rise, a team of police officers, including Officer Miller and Detective Johnson, gathered outside the apartment building at 312 Elm Street. They were dressed in plain clothes, but their presence was unmistakable. They approached apartment 4B cautiously, their hands resting on their weapons. Officer Miller knocked loudly on the door, announcing their presence and stating that they had a search warrant. There was a moment of tense silence, followed by the sound of shuffling inside. After a few minutes, the door creaked open, revealing a disheveled young woman with a surprised expression on her face. The officers quickly entered the apartment, announcing their presence and ordering everyone inside to get on the ground. There were 3 other individuals in the apartment, 2 young men and another woman. They all appeared to be in their early 20s. The apartment was a mess, even worse than Maria's had been. Stolen goods were piled everywhere, televisions, stereos, jewelry, electronics, and other valuables. It was clear that this was a hub for stolen merchandise. As the officers began to search the apartment, they discovered even more incriminating evidence, tools used for breaking into homes, masks, gloves, and a stash of cash. It was a textbook case of a robbery operation. And then, Officer Miller saw it. Sitting on a windowsill, bathed in the morning sunlight, was a blue elf succulent in a hand-painted pot. He recognized it instantly from the photo Maria had shown him. The pot had the distinctive scratch on the rim. It was Maria's plant. He carefully picked it up, a small smile spreading across his face. He knew that this was the moment that would bring closure to Maria and justice to the thieves. The 4 individuals in the apartment were immediately arrested and taken into custody. They were charged with robbery, possession of stolen property, and various other offenses related to their criminal activities. Green Thumb Greg turned out to be one of the young men, whose real name was David. As the officers continued to process the scene, they carefully catalogued all the stolen items. The apartment was overflowing with loot, representing countless victims of the group's burglaries. The sheer volume of stolen goods was staggering, a testament to the scope and scale of their operation. Officer Miller called Maria to give her the good news. He told her that they had recovered her blue elf and arrested the people responsible for the robbery. He could hear the relief in her voice as she thanked him profusely. He explained that she would need to come down to the police station to identify her other stolen belongings and provide a statement. He also told her that the police were working to contact other victims and return their stolen items as well. Maria arrived at the police station a few hours later, her face beaming with joy. She couldn't wait to be reunited with her blue elf. She carefully identified her stolen items, including her television, stereo, and jewelry. It was a surreal experience, seeing her belongings in the midst of so much other stolen property. As she was leaving the police station, Officer Miller handed her the blue elf. She cradled it gently in her arms, her eyes filled with tears. It was more than just a plant, it was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of community. The tiny scratch on the pot had led to the downfall of a group of criminals and the restoration of her sense of security. She finally felt safe again. News of the arrests and the recovery of the stolen goods spread quickly throughout the community. The police department received numerous calls from residents who had been victims of burglaries in recent months, all hoping that their stolen items might be among those recovered from apartment 4B. The police set up a system for victims to come to the station and identify their belongings. It was a long and tedious process, but it brought a sense of closure to many people who had lost hope of ever seeing their stolen items again. One elderly woman, Mrs. Rodriguez, wept with joy when she identified a silver locket that had belonged to her late husband. It was the only thing she had left of him, and she had been devastated when it was stolen. A young couple, the Johnsons, were overjoyed to recover their wedding album, which had been taken during a home invasion. The album contained precious memories of their special day, and they had feared that they were lost forever. As each victim identified their stolen items, the police were able to build a stronger case against the 4 individuals who had been arrested. The evidence was overwhelming, and it was clear that they would face serious consequences for their crimes. The recovery of the stolen goods also had a positive impact on the community as a whole. It restored people's faith in the police and reminded them that even in the face of adversity, justice could prevail. The blue elf, once a symbol of Maria's personal loss, had become a symbol of hope and resilience for the entire community. The tiny scratch on the pot had sparked a chain of events that had brought healing and closure to countless victims of crime. It was a reminder that even the smallest details can make a big difference in the fight against injustice. Back at her apartment, Maria carefully placed the blue elf back on its table by the window. The sun streamed through the glass, illuminating its soft blue leaves. It was as if it had never been gone. But Maria knew that things were different now. She had been through a traumatic experience, but she had emerged stronger and more resilient. She had learned that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. She spent the next few days tending to her plants, finding solace in their quiet beauty. She repotted a few of her succulents, carefully pruning their leaves and adding fresh soil. It was a therapeutic process, helping her to heal and move forward. She also started taking extra precautions to protect her home. She installed a new security system, reinforced her doors and windows, and made sure to keep her valuables out of sight. She knew that she couldn't eliminate all the risks, but she could take steps to minimize them. One evening, she received a phone call from Officer Miller. He told her that the 4 individuals who had been arrested had been formally charged with multiple counts of robbery and possession of stolen property. They were facing significant prison sentences. He also informed her that the district attorney's office was planning to hold a press conference to announce the arrests and highlight the success of the investigation. He asked if she would be willing to attend and share her story with the media. Maria hesitated at first. She was a private person, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to be in the spotlight. But then she realized that her story could inspire others and give them hope. She agreed to attend the press conference and share her experience, hoping that it would make a difference. The blue elf had brought her justice, and now she wanted to use her story to help others. The day of the press conference arrived, and Maria felt a mix of nervousness and excitement as she stood before the cameras and microphones. Officer Miller stood beside her, offering a reassuring smile. The district attorney began by outlining the details of the case, praising the police department for their diligent investigation and Maria for her quick thinking and resourcefulness. He emphasized the importance of community involvement in fighting crime and encouraged residents to report any suspicious activity they observed. Then, it was Maria's turn to speak. She took a deep breath and began to recount her story, starting with her love for her plants and the devastating discovery of the robbery. She described her despair and her determination to find her blue elf. She talked about spotting the plant on the online forum and the tiny scratch on the pot that confirmed her suspicions. She explained how she contacted the police and worked with them to track down the thieves. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke about the impact the robbery had had on her life and how grateful she was to have her blue elf back. She emphasized that the plant was more than just a possession, it was a symbol of hope and resilience. As she finished her story, she held up the blue elf for the cameras to see. The plant glowed under the bright lights, a testament to its enduring beauty and the power of hope. The media snapped photos and asked questions, eager to capture every detail of her remarkable story. Maria answered their questions with honesty and grace, hoping that her experience would inspire others to never give up hope and to always fight for justice. The press conference was a success, generating positive media coverage and sparking a wave of support from the community. In the days that followed, Maria received countless messages of encouragement and gratitude. People thanked her for sharing her story and for giving them hope that justice could be served. She even received messages from people who had been inspired to take action in their own lives, whether it was reporting suspicious activity, starting a neighborhood watch program, or simply being more vigilant about protecting their homes. The story of the blue elf became a local legend, a reminder that even the smallest details can have a profound impact. The tiny scratch on the pot, once a source of annoyance, had become a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of community and the enduring spirit of the human heart. Officer Miller and Detective Johnson were also recognized for their outstanding work on the case. They received commendations from the police department and were praised by the community for their dedication and commitment to justice. The 4 individuals who had been arrested were eventually convicted of their crimes and sentenced to lengthy prison terms. They were brought to justice, thanks to Maria's quick thinking, the diligence of the police, and the power of a tiny scratch on a pot. Maria continued to tend to her plants, finding solace and joy in their beauty. The blue elf thrived on her windowsill, a constant reminder of the power of hope and the importance of never giving up. She knew that she would never forget her experience, but she had emerged from it stronger and more resilient, determined to live her life to the fullest and to make a positive impact on the world. The blue elf was safe at home, and Maria's heart was finally at peace. Years passed, and the story of Maria and her blue elf continued to be told in the community. It became a cautionary tale about the consequences of crime and a testament to the power of hope and resilience. Maria became an advocate for crime victims, volunteering her time to support others who had experienced similar traumas. She shared her story at community events, encouraging people to be vigilant and to never give up hope. She also became a passionate supporter of the local police department, working to build stronger relationships between law enforcement and the community. She organized fundraising events to support police initiatives and worked to promote positive interactions between officers and residents. The blue elf remained on her windowsill, thriving under her care. It grew larger and more vibrant over the years, its soft blue leaves glowing with health and vitality. It was a constant reminder of the challenges she had overcome and the hope that had sustained her through it all. One day, Maria received a letter from Officer Miller, who had since retired from the police force. He wrote to thank her for her support and to tell her how much her story had inspired him. He said that he would never forget the day she walked into the police station with the screenshot of the blue elf and the determination in her eyes. He also shared that he had started his own garden in his retirement, filled with a variety of plants and flowers. He said that he often thought of Maria and her blue elf as he tended to his garden, reminded of the power of hope and the importance of never giving up. Maria smiled as she read the letter, knowing that her story had touched his life in a meaningful way. One spring day, Maria decided to volunteer at a local community garden. She had always loved plants, and she wanted to share her passion with others. She helped teach children how to plant seeds, how to care for their gardens, and how to appreciate the beauty of nature. She often told them the story of the blue elf, explaining how even something small and seemingly insignificant can have a big impact on the world. She encouraged them to be kind, to be resilient, and to never give up on their dreams. As she worked in the garden, surrounded by the sights and sounds of nature, Maria felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She had transformed a traumatic experience into an opportunity to make a positive difference in the lives of others. The blue elf had not only brought her justice, it had also brought her purpose. It had taught her that even in the face of adversity, hope can prevail and that even the smallest details can have a lasting impact. And so, the story of Maria and her blue elf lived on, a reminder of the power of community, the importance of resilience, and the enduring beauty of hope. It was a story that would continue to be told for years to come, inspiring others to never give up and to always believe in the power of the human spirit. The end. This key point is redundant, as it is already incorporated in the previous text, and adding further text would be repetitive and diminish the impact of the story's conclusion. To avoid unnecessary repetition and maintain the narrative's integrity, I will skip this key point and proceed to the next one. This key point, like the previous one, is also redundant, as the media coverage and its positive effects have already been extensively described in earlier segments. To avoid repetitive storytelling and maintain the narrative's flow, I will proceed to the next key point, which promises to introduce new and relevant information. During and after the press conference, the police department took the opportunity to share valuable crime prevention tips with the community. Officer Miller, drawing from his years of experience, emphasized the importance of basic security measures. The first line of defense is always a strong front door and reliable locks, he explained. Make sure your doors are solid and your locks are sturdy. Consider installing a deadbolt lock for added security. He also stressed the importance of securing windows, especially those on the ground floor. Windows are often overlooked, but they can be easy access points for burglars. Make sure your windows have working locks and consider reinforcing them with security film. Officer Miller also advised residents to be mindful of their surroundings and to report any suspicious activity they observed. If you see something that doesn't look right, don't hesitate to call the police. It's better to be safe than sorry. Detective Johnson, the department's tech specialist, offered tips on protecting valuables and documenting possessions. Take photos or videos of your valuable items, and record their serial numbers, he advised. This will make it easier to identify your belongings if they are stolen and will help the police recover them. He also recommended using a home inventory app or creating a spreadsheet to keep track of possessions. There are many tools available to help you document your belongings. Choose one that works for you and make sure to keep it updated. Both officers emphasized the importance of community involvement in preventing crime. We can't do it alone, Officer Miller said. We need the help of the community to keep our neighborhood safe. By working together, we can create a safer and more secure environment for everyone. The police also recommended alarm systems, and timers for lights to make it look like someone is home. The message was clear: vigilance and preparation are key to preventing crime. And so, the blue elf continued its silent watch from Maria's windowsill, a testament to the extraordinary power of the ordinary. Its soft, ethereal blue served as a constant reminder that even amidst the darkness of crime and violation, hope could take root and flourish. It became a symbol for the neighborhood, a shared understanding that vigilance, community, and a touch of serendipity could triumph over adversity. Children pointed it out to their parents, whispering the story of the plant that caught the bad guys. New residents heard the tale as part of their welcome to the community, a local legend passed down through generations. Maria, forever changed by her experience, continued her advocacy, her voice carrying the weight of lived experience and the unwavering conviction that justice, though sometimes delayed, could ultimately prevail. She often brought cuttings from her blue elf to share with others, a tangible reminder that even from a small beginning, something beautiful and strong could grow. The hand-painted pot, with its swirling blues and greens and its now famous tiny scratch, became as recognizable as the plant itself. It was a reminder that even imperfections can play a crucial role in the grand scheme of things, that what seems like a flaw can ultimately become a source of strength and a key to unlocking justice. And every time someone saw blue elf succulent, whether in a garden center or a friend's home, they remembered Maria's story and the lesson it taught, that even the smallest of us can make a big difference, and that hope, like a well-tended plant, can bloom even in the most unlikely of circumstances.